All right, hopefully we are good to go. Just as a heads up for everyone, we are waiting on our final panelist. He's just finishing something up, but really excited to have everybody here today for our first Scaled Sports webinar. We're gonna be doing these monthly going forward, but really excited to get it started today with kind of an all-star panel for our first one. So as a quick intro, for those of you who don't know, my name is Ben Pincus. I am the head of sports strategy at Skaled Consulting. Joined here a few months ago after spending about a decade in the industry, both on the team and league side, both in the US and then also internationally, spent some time in Australia. But I'm excited to introduce you to our panel today, who are here to provide two main things. So the goal is to provide you first with a different perspective. So we have people from different sports, different leagues, in and out of sports, who are gonna hopefully be able to give you some perspective that might be a little different than you're used to, hopefully. And the second goal, is really important for this and every one of these that we do, is that we give you legit action items that as a leader or a rep, you can take and you can go and do tomorrow. So those are the two main pieces that are important for today. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start with some intros for the people who are going to be able to help you do just that. So I'll start first and foremost with the founder and CEO of Skaled Consulting, Jake Dunlap. So Jake's had an impressive career in sales for a while now. VP of sales at Noway, which was acquired by Yelp. Head of sales and customer success at Chartbeat, and was also the VP of sales at Glassdoor, which hopefully a number of you are familiar with. He was actually there when they got acquired for over $1 billion in 2018. But good news is Jake has his roots in the sports industry, as he started his career with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays as a Tampa native. Shout out old school Devil Rays, and also spent some time with the Phoenix Coyotes. So excited to have Jake with us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Next is coming to us from the home of world famous South Beach, Mr. Worldwide himself and the world champion Miami Marlins. Excited to introduce Andre Luck. So Jake, you'll be excited to know Andre is a fellow ASU grad, so you guys can talk all about
Sun Devil, let's go.
There we go. Fargo, there we go.
Dre made his career in Phoenix after graduating from ASU, spent time with the Diamondbacks, as well as running ASU's ticket sales program for the Aspire Group, which is where we met. Spent 7 years then with the world champion Houston Astros as their director of sales, and is currently the VP of sales for the Miami Marlins, overseeing all of their ticket sales, service, and premium. So thanks for joining us, Dre.
Yeah, Jake, Jason Latimer says, hey, going back to your Devil Rays days.
It's been a while, man.
Love it. And last and certainly not least, sticking with the world theme, joining us from the world's most famous arena by way of Saddle River, New Jersey, Demi McEntee. So Demi and I actually go way back. She was one of my interns when I worked at the Garden a few years ago, and she's just absolutely skyrocketed since then. I take full and complete credit for that. Demi's gone from literally, after graduating from NYU, from an intern to an inside sales manager in a little over 2 years, which is just incredible. Currently, she's responsible for managing the entry-level sales teams for all of MSG's sports-related entities, obviously with a big focus on the seasons, partials, that sort of thing for the Knicks and Rangers. So excited to have Demi, and side note, she's a kickball player extraordinaire. I don't know if that'll come into play today, but we will see. So thanks for joining, Demi.
Thanks for having me, Ben. I did win the OBJ like hand certificate for the kickball team, so happy to join any team if you need it.
So let's jump right in. So obviously we are in what I would assume for most people is the strangest time in our lives as it relates to the sports industry. But you know, we've seen a lot going around, good and bad. We saw obviously the big announcement from Gary Bettman on the NHL's plan for next year, or for the playoffs. I'm sorry, again, congrats Demi on qualifying for the playoffs. But what I'm curious about is, beyond just your team, like what are the things that you're seeing in the industry that just piqued your interest, kind of seeing where sports are starting to go? And how has any of that shaped the approach that, you know, for Demi and Andre, kind of you're working on with your team? So Trey, I'll start with you. Like, what have you seen in the industry that's really kind of piqued your interest and kind of, you know, helped you as you've gotten started with your team in this time?
Yeah, so we're going back almost, 2.5 months now. And at first, you know, we all kind of thought, you know, it's going to be a week, two, we'll be back in the office, baseball will start, and it's business as usual. So obviously that hasn't been the case, but, you know, for us, it's allowed us to really lock in. And as we were making our push towards opening day, focus back on some of the fundamentals and get dialed back in. So across baseball and across really all leagues, you see everyone focusing back on training and, you know, a lot of connections and, you know, calls just to other people sharing best practices. So that's been really cool to see and learn. I think one thing for us that as we saw this shift starting to happen is, as an organization, we onboarded Microsoft Teams. So we started working on, you know, things like this, our video presentations and those skills where, you know, all through my career, it's been focused on getting people to the ballpark, getting face-to-face, but with social distancing now, it's going to be a lot more virtual, a lot more digital, and looking to tell that story and paint that picture over a video conference. But right now we don't have any products that we're actively selling. So we're looking for ways to engage with our members, our clients, just our fans in general, you know, through some different avenues, like some live Q&As with our players and things like that. So just trying to find new innovative ways to stay engaged without, you know, what we've been able to, you know, fall back on in the past, which has been games and getting face-to-face with people.
Yeah, and I know, Jake, that's something that you and I have talked about a lot, and whether it's with obviously the work we've been doing with the Jets, but as you see sports being in a position to change the way that they promote and the way that they sell, you just kind of clue everybody in what's sort of things that you're seeing and a little bit of best practice.
Yeah, sure. And it's good to meet you guys. Appreciate everyone tuning in here. We've got 50 plus people, which is great. So look, for me, I like you said, I started my career in sports. So I've kind of a peek behind the curtain there, but, you know, we've worked with a lot of, you know, technology and people outside the industry, right? And sports can get super insular at times between, you know, changing teams. And so I've had a chance to see what, you know, not just sports teams, but, you know, lots of different organizations are doing. And I think a lot of this is about, and especially where in sports, it's just, there's not a product to sell. It's, again, how do you create these unique experiences? So, you know, hey, you know, like they had the draft coming up and, you know, can we mail some different, you know, bottle cap openers and things to try to create an experience? The other big piece has been LinkedIn, that, you know, whether you're in season ticket sales or group sales, a lot of your people are on LinkedIn and maybe some of the people you've been trying to get in touch with. So, you know, we've been doing a big push with our clients, especially in sports, to get the teams more active, nurturing those relationships digitally. You know, so I'm connecting with these people, maybe setting up a quick 10-minute call just to let them know, hey, what we're up to, and it, you know, kind of introduce ourselves and really being able to nurture those relationships. So whenever things do actually open up, there becomes that opportunity. So I think it's about moving digital and finding new ways to build relationships that maybe LinkedIn before had been a place where we'd reach out for meetings, as opposed to now, you know, we're seeing a lot of teams that are putting out content. You know, they're putting out content. They're talking about, you know, not always just talking about the team and the schedule. They're also talking about, hey, what's happening in events in New York or events in, you know, Texas. So I think it's finding new ways, you know, similar to Andre said, to engage digitally. And I think LinkedIn is a great platform for that, for most sports teams to really jump on. Yeah.
Agree. And, you know, Demi, for you, obviously you had a little bit of good news yesterday with the playoffs, but you guys are playing it a little cautious. So what is it that you've seen resonate with your team right now? One, to keep them engaged, but two, as they are continuing to keep conversations going that were happening before, you know, obviously the shift.
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of things in the industry that have stood out to me is looking at like the TV ratings from The Last Dance and The Match. They're all right around 6 million or just under 6 million people tuning in. So we shared that with our team and showed them there's a lot of like hunger for sports right now, and people are missing it a lot. So for an inside sales rep, it can be a little bit scary going into a call or an email or some sort of text to a client that is an unfamiliar scenario, but we've told them there's been a lot of statistics out there, like Live Nation put out that 80% of people or something want to return to sports within a couple of months of everything opening up. So there is a lot of optimism around there. So just reassuring them that people do want to talk to you. They do have a hunger for sports. They haven't had live sports in months. So anytime they can talk to somebody at the Garden who they think may know a lot about what's going on, they just want to have a conversation with you. So just approach it that way and give a lot of credit to our service and retention team. They've been partnering with a lot of our major partners and sponsors, but like Bud Light, and trying to get as interactive with their current clients and delivering them food, delivering them unique little things for them, because experiences are a little bit tough right now, like you said, Jake, but doing Zoom calls with players, really anything to stay engaged with our fans and our clients.
Yeah. Just a quick side note, I should have mentioned this in the beginning, but the chat is on fire right now. Just jump in there, let everybody know who you are, where you're from. Good to see you, Gary from HBSE, crew from the Rail Riders. Demi, your partner in crime, Brandon Lawrence is online. If you have questions for the crew, we'll hold some time at the end for that, but feel free to jump in and we'll try to get to them as we go along as well in the Q&A button. So, and I think, Demi, you hit on it, right? It's, there's never been a better time to connect, right? I think we've seen that with the way that teams are networking with each other, reps are networking with each other. And the great news is conversations are starting to happen where we're not talking about, we don't know when teams are going to play. We don't know what's happening with this season, right? With the NHL, we have a little more clarity, right? Overseas, some leagues have started, and teams are starting to change that a little bit. And so what I'd love to get from you is, where is it that you're seeing your reps have success, right? We've talked about some of the tools you're giving them, but for you and Andre, like, where are you seeing your reps have success right now?
Yeah, Demi, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. So with our inside sales team, like you mentioned earlier, Ben, we've taken a very soft approach, but some of the more experienced sellers, like the account executives, are on the premium side. It's been a lot of back to the basics for them, but the biggest thing that we've hit on with them that I think is starting to click is approaching a call from the mindset of a buyer, and where are they at taking their temperature, not being overly aggressive. People are in a much different state than what they're used to, and then the way that we're typically used to selling. So approaching it from that aspect, but ultimately honing in on active listening. And that's been the biggest thing for them that we've been focusing on a lot. And we've seen them get a lot better. We've been utilizing a lot of our resources, such as Exec Vision, to call each other and listen to the calls and see how we've progressed from pre-COVID to where we're at now and how their skills have developed to see those results. So I know our teams are itching to get back on the phones, but I think we've been in a much better spot than we were a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, before, Jake, I would love for you to talk about kind of the tech stack and where you've seen some teams be in a good spot. But Andre, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here is you are somebody, as long as I've known you, who's been interested in kind of what else can we do and how can we change things, and let's try things. And so, whether it's your monthly kind of book recommendations, things like that on LinkedIn, you talk about the way that you approach it and ultimately how you're pushing your team to do the same.
Yeah, trying new things. I noticed, going back to what Jake mentioned on LinkedIn, like, there's a big opportunity. And one of my resolutions going into this year as a leader was to post regularly for a year. So at least 2 posts a month, and that's where the video comes in and the book recommendation. And no matter how awful those might be or lack of engagement, I just wanted to see that through for a year and see just what happens from it. But as going back to your original question on where are the reps seeing success, I think first we had to redefine what success was, because as a sales rep, it's very quantifiable when you know what your number is, you know what your metric is, and you go get it every single day. Where, as being in sales for 12, 13 years, you're chasing a number, where now it's like you're not necessarily chasing a number. It's, how many of your members, how many of your clients can you just reach out to and do a wellness check with, which, for me, I always felt that was the right way to go about it anyways. I think you need to lead with empathy. I think you need to speak in terms of, the prospect or the client's best interest. But sometimes we get so caught up in the transaction of trying to make a sale that this like forced us to just push pause and get back to having conversations. So once we're on the other side of all this, however long that may be, I think it's going to benefit a lot of us. But for right now, it was, we're not asking you to make a sale. Right? We don't even have anything to sell. So just reach out to people, talk to them, build up your funnel, and have just genuine conversations, checking on people. And then we'll figure out what the next step is from there. So for us, success hasn't necessarily been sales. And I think we were always in a situation that we aren't the best team in the league. So we had to lock in and focus on some of those basics and fundamentals. And this just reassured a lot of those things that we see a lot of teams starting to do now that we feel are best practices.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake, I see you shaking your head. I think you probably agree with a few of the things that he mentioned, but where have you seen, hopefully, teams think this way, but really using technology to help drive the process, especially right now?
Well, I mean, whether it's technology or just the messaging, I think what Demi and what Andre said are spot on, that I feel like teams on the other side of this, when you have a product that people just have a natural affinity for, it's so easy to lean on that as opposed to like, how did this company actually make money? How can the Marlins or the Rangers help their business? And I think what I'm seeing is that leaders are really aligning around this of like, let me understand their business, like what's happening. Whereas before, maybe the default would be to just talk about the team and how things are going to be better this year and things like that. So what I'm seeing is I feel like the sellers are getting more up to speed on understanding the business than ever before. And so I think to Andre's point, on the other side of this, I think they're going to be able to have more business conversations than they probably were in the past, as opposed to just, fan conversations. I think tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator as well too, like allow you to like quickly add a lot more contacts. And so that's the other thing, that we're seeing, and Andre and Demi, I don't know how your teams are using it specifically, but, we've got one of our teams, I won't mention, on a 10-person team, they've added 12,000 new connections that are CEO and VP level in 2.5 months. Like, why wouldn't you be doing this, right? And so taking this time to build that network and invest in yourself as a seller to learn, okay, that not every business is doing bad. We might be doing bad in sports because we don't have anything to sell, but guess what? This industry over here is doing really well. So maybe with this industry, and this kind of to fast forward to what we're seeing is, it's okay, even if you don't know what the product is, et cetera, to maybe start to talk about what that could be. Like, hey, right now, these are some options we're probably going to have. Let me just plant that seed and then we'll pick it up in a couple months. And so I think if you've got industries where the industry is doing fine as a seller, it's okay to peek your head out of the turtle shell a little bit and say, hey, you know what? We've had a couple conversations, like Demi said, where, you got to know what we do. You guys are doing well. As we start to think about this, let's catch up in a month and here's some ideas. So I feel like it's okay for you as sellers to start to, again, assuming the industry is like they're doing well, to have more what I think you traditionally call sales conversations. So I think you're building that long-term funnel for most of the people. You're making these connections, you're getting smarter, you're posting on LinkedIn, but then you're also not afraid for that 5 or 10% of people, I think, to just kind of toss out, hey, guess what? I might ask you for money at some point. Like there is a business transaction in particular.
Yeah, the other thing that does, that there's been a gap in this part of the industry. Demi, you talk about active listening and how it's more important than ever. Understanding other industries is more important than ever, right? If you're going to go ask somebody for money for a business purpose, you need to be able to accurately and sort of confidently give a unique selling proposition or a value for a business. You've got to know their industry, and we spend so much time focusing on our product and this is what we have to sell and this is how much it costs and this is what you get for it, and not this is why it makes sense for your business. This is what you can do with it. Knowing what's going on in your industry, here's why it makes sense. And I think using the amount of people that you connect with in different areas, I think it'll be really, really huge for people from a skill set growth. Talking about the outreach side of things, right? Agree or disagree? We'll go quickly, right? Sports right now has an opportunity to get cut through, even though there's nothing to sell. Demi, agree or disagree?
Agreed.
Andre?
When you say cut through, what do you mean by that?
People want to hear what you. People want to hear from you.
Yeah, I agree.
Jake?
Agree.
Right? we are powerful brands, right? We can get cut through. People are looking for this type of content. To your point, Demi, they're not necessarily saying, hey, please sell me something right now, right? But it wasn't that way before, right? But the issue that I think we have to work through as an industry is update our tactics, update our messaging, update our approach. And I know Demi, Jake, and Andre, you guys all hit on something. But there are a few weaknesses that I don't think we've made changes to right now. So, Jake, I'll start with you here. When you look at the clients that you've worked with in the SaaS space as an example, what do you see as some of the strengths that they might have that sports could actually use as it relates to how they engage, not just what the messaging is, but literally at a foundational level, how they engage from a new business perspective?
It's a great question. I think it's not different, and maybe I don't know. I mean, I learned a lot of like sales techniques very early. It's always about aligning to the ROI for the customer, and I think sometimes again, I'm actually kind of floored at times by, like, let's say a company's invested 20, 50, 100,000 in a partial suite or season tickets or box seats, and you say, okay, great. What was the ROI for that customer this year? How many new clients did they close? It's like, they had a good time. Like, okay, cool. When times are tough and they go to the CFO and the CFO says, hey, we're spending $250,000 here. Can you tell me the ROI? Like, you're screwed. And I feel like that's probably one of the big one is just aligning to, if it's a business, what is that? Are they trying to retain customers? What's the value of one customer, right? Are they doing that and keeping track of the business relationship? That would be my big piece of advice is like, but it's the same thing for an individual. Like when I sold season tickets, man, and I was banging my Ticketmaster leads. Like, don't get me started. I'm telling you, we're going to do a video this year of me banging Ticketmaster leads. I love Ticketmaster leads. They're like my favorite thing because you can do whatever you want. Like you just light those things on fire. So, but it's the same concept for an individual. I want to understand what John Smith, John, hey, why, what would your return look like? Is it more time with your family? Is it, more quality time with your son or your daughter? And I want to align to his ROI or her ROI. And I feel like it's understanding those layers of what's the actual return here that this person's looking for and getting specific, that I feel like, especially on the business side, but certainly on the personal side, that you can go back and anchor to that. I can go justify my budget because now I've got an ROI that I can attach to it. So that would be my big one.
Yeah,
Jake, do you mind if I jump in on that real quick, Ben?
Yeah, go for it.
If I could go back to starting as a salesperson, I would focus more on the B2B aspect of it. And I think just learning that business acumen and working with so many reps on B2B selling, like you said, there are parallels that can help you in that B2C conversation. But I think that's where in the sports industry we're behind, and other industries is just because when you come out of college and you take a software sales job, you're selling to businesses where we're talking to fans, and it's very transactional. It comes with these benefits, comes with these perks, but you're never really having to, if your brand's strong enough or the interest is there, really dive in and talk through the value, how they could use it, which we all know that's how people are going to renew. Or like you said, Jake, when they go to their CFO, like justifying that expense, did they use it and did they meet their objectives? So, encouraging anyone new in sales or any managers in sales, teaching new sales reps, just understanding that B2B conversation, or if it is on the B2C side, talking through use, even if they're ready to go and locked in, like it's a done deal, make sure you understand it so that when you kick it over to the service team, they understand why that person bought tickets and how they can use it. And that customer or client success, role you see outside of sports, like that's really where I think the service role moves on the sports side, is like, it's not just renewing them and, knowing that their son's birthday is this and their kid plays this sport, but are they meeting their objectives, and how can you walk them through, here's what you said you wanted to do and it looks like you're not meeting your objectives. So let's talk through how we can, so that, when you go to renewal time, it's not, you're trying to bat all those objections in, like it's an ongoing renewal process throughout the entire conversation.
And Jake, I like what you said about, they're buying time with their kids or their family of four, and they just want to get out once or twice a month with their family. We've been trying to position it to the different sellers, whether they're in inside sales where they primarily focus on B2C, or the A's who focus on B2B and B2C, understanding that the buyer is buying the product of the product or the service of the service. They're not just buying the 5-game pick plan because they're a fan. They're buying the 5-game pick plan because they're a fan, and they also don't have a lot of time to spend with their kids. and Sunday afternoon games are when it's family time. So that does work for them. So that's what they're really buying. But to us, they're buying the 5-game pick plan. For them, it's that time with their family. So taking those detailed notes and really understanding what they're buying from their perspective and what they're gaining out of it is crucial, especially going into making more calls during this time and really understanding what's important to them.
Yeah, like totally agree. And Dre, I'm gonna ask, like, as you look at one of the things Jake mentioned was keeping the conversation going, the longer sales cycle, right? That's what we're in right now, a longer sales cycle, and hopefully we ever have in the industry, right? How are you? And I'm going to shout out Evans is on your director of sales, so hopefully you guys are aligned here. But as you look at how you are training reps to keep that conversation going right now, right? What are the key points that you are giving to Evans, or that Evans is giving to his team, that is saying, look, you are going to need to know who they are, because we're going to have this conversation, even if it's for two season tickets, it's going to happen for, 3 months, where the normal sales cycle might be 20 days. What are the things that you're getting across to Evans, or Evans is getting across to his team, to really hammer that home?
I think it's just the reality of the situation that we're in. I think a lot of people understand and just realize it's not the time, the sensitivity around, a lot of people are struggling. So for you to have long-term success, and for me, I always, focus on what's sustainable long-term. The flash in the pan, that doesn't go with me, not my personality type, more on consistency and, look up, 2-3 years from now, are we where we wanted to be? And, coaching and teaching that. It's tough to understand earlier in your career, but, sticking to those guns and focusing on, all right, if we aren't going to have an opportunity to sell in 2020, how do you set yourself up for the best 2021 that you can have? And I think that takes a little bit of the pressure off of, having to close now, where naturally it just leads to a conversation. And the funny thing is, you actually learn more through that when you're not trying to sell them. And then you understand, all right, it isn't a fit because of this, and I was trying to shove this product down their throat, or it is a fit because, I learned these things, and they open up and let their guard down. And now you can just have an open conversation with them about their business, or just about them, which is ultimately what is so easy to say in sales, but tough when you're chasing numbers, or the person next to you just made a sale and you're like, I got to go close the deal now too. There isn't that now. So I think that kind of helps. And, to Evans, he's a great teacher, great coach. So a lot of that I don't have to worry about from that standpoint, but we're aligned in that. Like, let's focus on, the long term. So.
Yeah. And now it's actually good, because now I know why you joined the Marlins. It wasn't for career progression, right? You were tired of selling a team that was winning World Series and had the best pitching staff in the major leagues. You wanted to work a little harder. I respect that.
I wanted a challenge. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Those were some fun times. So.
And so Demi, on your side, right, as somebody who is the frontline sales leader, right, as your reps who hopefully they started in a January class and didn't necessarily get full into the habits, but as people who, been there maybe 6-8 months and they're used to a particular sales cycle, how are you helping them adjust to the new one?
Yeah, so really just slowing them down, and like you said earlier, redefining what a win is. And if somebody decides to, put down a deposit for next season and doesn't completely ask for a refund, like that's when that's great. They battled through those objections to keep that money on, and they sold the idea of next season, even though we don't know what's going to happen. So just having them slow things down, setting clear follow-ups with people. We typically tend to stay we want it within a week or two, but 3 weeks out, it is okay if that's because of their situation at home. And if they say, yeah, you can follow up with me in 3 weeks or so, maybe my situation is different, but not getting an actual, no, don't call me, that is a win for them. And just keeping somebody in the pipeline to have a touch point and bring new information to them, and hopefully have a testimonial for them for somebody similar in their position that we helped out.
Yeah, I love that. Want to, again, chat's on fire. Feel free to start throwing in some questions. I've got a bunch of them, but want to make sure that all the panelists get a chance to hear from you. So there's a that Q&A button, just click on it, throw a couple of questions in there. We don't have to wait till the end. Go for it now. We want to transition. We've been talking a lot about, you know, the keeping people engaged and all of that, but want to talk a little bit about how we are starting new conversations. It may seem odd, like how are we starting conversations with brand new people? How are we having new business conversations right now? But as Jake mentioned, right, we're working with teams that have done that at a really high level. And where we've seen that success, where I want to kind of hone in for today, is on the LinkedIn side of things. So before I say anything else, this is not about becoming LinkedIn famous. This is not about adding people all over the place and not really paying attention to what they're sharing or what they're doing, but it's becoming somebody who knows what's going on with their prospects, follows them along, engages with them, and does it in a more authentic manner. And so as the resident expert in the room, Jake, I'm gonna throw it to you. For I think even for Demi and Andre, but for the crew that's on you know, on the webinar with us, break it down foundationally. If you're a rep, what are you going to do today that's saying, all right, here's how I'm going to use my LinkedIn differently?
Yeah, I mean, the first is I'm going to start building my network, right? So again, I would be connecting with, and look, if I was a rep today and my team didn't have Sales Nav, I'd come out of pocket $75 a month, easy. Like what Sales Nav allows you to do is build very targeted lists in LinkedIn that make a lot of other actions easy. In this list, I can see who's posted content. Maybe we shared a previous work experience. Have they changed jobs? Anyway, and a real quick list where I can connect with people too. So I think I would start to grow my network. And in LinkedIn, you can add, you know, 100 people a day. And for a lot of you, your territories are relatively, you know, defined / undefined. So I would start to grow my network. You know, there's just no reason not to. You sell into Miami, into CEOs and VPs of sales in companies this size and with this industry, and LinkedIn Sales Now, I can go build a list and connect. And so I would be taking this time to do that. And then the other thing is just posting content that I think is going to be relevant to my community, talking about events, resharing things that aren't just, and I'll just say Marlins focused or whatever, you know, wherever you are, whether you're an A&M or wherever you are, you want buyers, you know, like let's say you connect with a CEO, you connect with a VP of marketing. You want to share content that you think that they'll be interested in. That's not just here's what the Marlins. It might be something about, hey, how people are thinking of events digitally from the Marlins, right? Like that's something that a sales leader, a marketing leader who also could be a potential buyer is also thinking about. So I would be posting 1 to 2 times a week, not just, you know, here's our latest update as an MLB team. I would be posting other things that I think would be relevant to CEOs, sales and marketing leaders in my local market. And I think that is all, and you can borrow content from other sites and, you know, do different things. So I think that's it, is I'd build my network and I'd start to become that person. You know, when I was at Tampa, for example, one of my big clients was the St. Pete and Tampa downtown partnerships. And, you know, we did that via email, right? So I connect with these guys and we did emails, and then the Yankees and Red Sox fan would overtake the stadium. But, you know, it's kind of like the new way to do that. You know, now I can connect with all these business owners and my posts can kind of be the content drip to them. So that way, once I get them in my kind of web, now whenever I want to start to have business conversations, I have a network of engaged people. So that simple play, adding a bunch of people every day, posting 1 or 2 times a week around the content you think they'll think interesting is what I would do right now.
And I just want to add on to that, right? The idea of like just going and adding a bunch of people, right? It's not about, hey, I just want to get as many people as possible, right? It's about once those people are connecting with you, you've got to be prepared for how you want to interact, right? There's got to be a thought process of when I post this, it's going to be for these people, or the reason that I'm connecting with them is I want to follow along. And when they post something, I'm going to engage with it. So my first point of call isn't a LinkedIn in-mail that's saying, hey, would love to talk to you about this thing that I have to sell, right? This is about, exactly as we were talking about Demi and Andre, like about the longer term play, about the longer term process. And it's about something we talk about in sports all the time, is authenticity, right? No one wants to be sold to, but everybody wants to buy something. And they're going to have those conversations once they know a little bit more about you and they see that you're genuinely interested. It's basic stuff, but this is a new way to look at that. And just for everybody on, just to give you an idea, before COVID happened, LinkedIn had 600 million users, and I think it was somewhere around 200 million were active, meaning they used the platform a couple of times during a week, not necessarily that they were posting, but that they were active. That number since COVID is actually doubled. And so the people that you want to sell to, the people that you've been trying to reach, that is where they are. And so even if you are in the group space, I've had this conversation with a few teams, like we always think they're firefighters or they're teachers or they're, you know, they work at a fan club, whatever it might be, but those people are on LinkedIn. And if you are taking the time to move in that direction, target those people and have a plan for how to do that, you're going to build your pipeline right now for the next several months. So, you know, Jay, I'll go to you again as somebody who I know embraces sort of the LinkedIn side on your own. What are your thoughts on that, and how do you see your reps using LinkedIn right now?
Yep. So I'll be honest, yeah, I'm still new to it. As a rep, you know, it was more, you know, keeping up with job updates and, you know, seeing this person got there, you're like, oh, I can do that job. So I had to like take a pause off LinkedIn for a little bit as a rep, because you got in that competition game a little. But, you know, as you know, you look as a leader now and like what it actually is built for, there's a ton of opportunity, as I mentioned. The big thing for me is I want to make sure that it's a complement to all the other tools that they're doing. I think you kind of hit on this, Ben, to start, but this isn't about, all right, you know, going to your sales manager and saying phone calls don't work anymore, I'm going to spend 8 hours on LinkedIn. Like, you have to create time to make sure that you do it and do it efficiently. And this should complement all the work that you're doing. So along with the cold calls you're making, along with the closing calls, you know, those that are going to take the time to invest and build out their network, as you mentioned, Jake, and connect with people and do it strategically, you know, whether it's your clients or prospects, you're having success in this industry, finding more people in that industry, you know, kind of fishing where the fish are there. Like that's, I think that's going to be the most successful, where I at least coach our team to start. Jake, I just got a text from one of my reps who's now pushing for us to purchase LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So we'll see if that gets in the budget, but I think for now he can use the basic version and, you know, start there and then go.
Come out of your own pocket, man. Hey, look, I'm telling you, I would come, and that is an easy $70. Here's what it is. Here's the investment. You know, I would do it.
Yep. Yeah, you got to invest in yourself. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, and as reps start to embrace it and utilize it for what it's for and be efficient with it, it can be a dangerous tool that can only help make you more effective, because a lot of people aren't going to invest the time to get on LinkedIn and to connect with people and do that extra work. You know, a lot of salespeople want that easy sale to come, which that's going to be happening anytime soon here. So, yeah, building up your prospect list and understanding how you can use that to your advantage is going to be huge right now while you have the time.
Yep. Makes sense. And the one thing, like we've got to be real about this, right? In my conversations with you, Andre, and you, Demi, right? Your reps it's not just, yep, go and say whatever you feel like, right? You got a brand to protect. And so working within the bounds of what makes sense for you as the rep, being authentic, but also within that you know, within the guidelines, you know, Demi, I know from personal experience, right? There's a very specific way that we want to do it. But just, you know, if you can hit on that a little bit, kind of how you have your reps working through that.
Yeah, so we, because of, you know, the MSC company being so big, and the two different companies that, sports and entertainment that we spun off into, we're very selective in what we post on LinkedIn, but we actually had Jake come in, probably, what was it, end of February, early March, came in and talked to both inside sales teams. And whether it's pre-COVID or during COVID, the message is still the same. It's all about tailoring it to them and making sure that it's not just the same message you're sending to everybody, but tailoring it to them specifically. It only takes about a minute or two to find information on them. But for our team specifically, we put metrics on how many opportunities they have to add into Salesforce each week. So they've been adding hundreds of new opportunities so that when we do get back on the phones, they have a plethora of high net worth individuals and businesses that they can go after as soon as we get back on the phone, so that there's no shortage of leads to reach out to.
Love that. So wanna just, you know, while we've got a little bit of time left, want to make sure we talk about, as we said, one of the goals from today is for people to be able to walk away with what is it that what can I go do tomorrow? What is it for me that I can make a change, or I can do more of, or I can do less of? And so we'll just sort of round robin this, but Andre, I'll start with you. Right? As a leader, what is it, if you are a leader of a team, you would tell another leader, this is what you should be doing right now?
Yeah, I think there's a few things as you look ahead. We mentioned it a couple times now, and it's that empathy and, being genuine, authentic, and, truly understanding what that means, and not just because it's the new sales tactic right now. And, all sales trainers are saying, be empathetic and be genuine. But if you're just doing it because everyone's saying that, it defeats the purpose. So I think tangible, the things that helped me in that, I posted about it a couple months ago, but How to Win Friends and Influence People, I think that's the #1 book that any professional should read on, just thinking in the other person's shoes and thinking from their point of view. There's another book I read, Sales EQ, where it's more the EQ in the sales process, but, making it tangible to these conversations that you're having. I think, right now, letting down the guard and, I just want to get to know you and understand your business. But as we move forward, one of the things I think we're going to have to do is not just earn their trust and not just sell them on the use of it. We're going to have to talk through, make them feel comfortable about even coming back to games. So, working with people across the operation side of your organization, understanding, what are the safety protocols you're putting in place for people to feel comfortable to come to games. And, we have to sell them on that before we can even talk about anything ticket related, because that's going to be, I think, a huge objection that's going to be coming, which is understandable. I don't know if I feel comfortable bringing my daughters and my wife to a game right now. So, what would make us feel safe coming to games, and understanding, what those measures are your team's taking or your organization's taking. And that may be the lead into some of these conversations, asking some of those questions and hitting some of those bullet points. So I think that's a new wrinkle, I guess you could say, that's been thrown into it is, we got to sell them on the idea of even coming to a game and feeling comfortable. Then we can talk about and earning their trust and talk about how they could use us and everything like that.
Yeah. Demi, how about you?
Yeah, Andre, you hit all the key points. One thing that as a sales leader, I think worked out really well for our sales team was we had them develop business plans, and they had to do a deep dive into this past fiscal season, what they sold, what their percentage of each plan that they sold, which team did they sell more than the other, which products brought in most of the revenue from them, where were their sales coming from, which particular lead. So doing a real deep dive into understanding who they are as a seller and knowing where they need to focus on or what they're really good at, and everything down from their overall objectives to their strategies down to their tactics, and coming up with that on their own and walking them through that process really has helped shift their lens. So it helped me understand them a lot better, and then ultimately what we all need to work on as a team. So I think that's something that while we're all working from home and have a little more time, it was a really great exercise that we went through, and we're going to be presenting them hopefully up to our leadership team.
Awesome. So we're gonna take one of the questions we got sent in. Again, you can send them in, and you can even make them anonymous if you're worried about it, but keep sending them in. We'll start with the first one. Jake, I'll throw this to you as somebody who is a leader of a place that has multiple multiple offices on different parts of the country. But the question is, what's the biggest leadership style adjustment you've made during this quarantine/remote environment?
As a leader, I don't know how the rest of you feel. I think it's been better for my people. I feel like whenever you're a leader, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate, sometimes your time is spread thin, you're trying to give enough to a lot of people. And so what happens is all those little micro moments, someone comes up and, needs you for 20 minutes or 5 minutes or 15 minutes, and that adds up to the day. I feel like I've purposely taken more time to be present for meetings and be more focused, because it's in a Zoom. It's really easy for me to be on my phone. I can do this. I can do all this stuff. So I think just being present, and for me, I think it's helped me. It's given me more of a pause. It's giving me more opportunity to think and kind of digest things. So as a leader, I think it's now, if you do go back into the office, how do you change that? I think hopefully for a lot of sports leaders, yes, it's always been like you're in the office, you're grinding, you're making it happen. And I think what we've seen across the board is guess what? People are fully capable of being adults. Like that we didn't, maybe we didn't have to be like all on them. Cause again, like, look, this is the world I grew up in, man. Like I was the guy in Silicon Valley who I remember my CEO goes, Jake, do you think we can let him wear jeans? I'm like, no, you can't let salespeople wear jeans. They'll run the roost. They'll think it's lazy. And then, over time, I changed that. So I feel like as a sales leader, this has really maybe opened my eyes up, one, to creating more personal time for myself so I can think. And also that, man, just, you talked about a classic book. I'll talk about one, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, talks about this concept of steward leadership, which is you set the path, you give the parameters, and how they get there is kind of up to them. And I feel like we've operated very successfully with that type of mindset. Whereas, where I grew up in and kind of my go-to has been more of the, we're talking more frequently and I'm influencing more of your results versus letting, or your path to get to results. So I think it's been good for me and kind of allowed me as a leader to, I think, grow even a little bit to give people more leeway, and that work from home and these other things that I might have thought were impossible, actually, people are really stepping up. So that's mine.
Yeah, Demi, I'll throw it to you. Same question. I mean, as somebody who's in kind of their first leadership role and having to make a pretty big adjustment, how has this been for you?
Yeah, it was definitely a little unsettling at first. I'm very used to go all the time, and I felt like there was like less almost structure in my day, which I didn't like. But then I got used to it and realized I had a lot more time with my team, which was great. And ultimately, I realized I need to get to know them a lot more when they're onboarding and spend more time with them individually, because I learned so much about all of them working from home that I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't know this about you, and you've been here for 5-6 months. So realizing from my perspective, I need to get to know them a lot more right up front as they get are onboarding. Not only that they'll feel more comfortable talking to me, but also I understand them more, where to push them, where they're going to need help in, and ultimately just reading their body language.
Dre, what about you?
I laughed at almost everything Jake said because that was me coming up in sports sales. It was like, there's no way. And like, they can't wear jeans on Friday. They won't set any appointments. Like, all that stuff is just ingrained in your head as a manager and a leader. And, it taught me to, over these past couple of months, to really trust ourselves. I'm really proud of how they handle themselves and like be very clear on the metrics that you want. And, you really have to communicate, specifically what you're looking for. And it made me realize there's probably a lot of fluff in our day when we're in the office that we kind of build in because, that's just the way it is. But we can be highly effective, working from home, working remotely. We just need to be specific and clear on what it is that we're focusing on each day and make sure that we hit it. It's also allowed me to be around more, be in more meetings, because now I just have to click over to a Teams meeting where, I have to go to a different office in the ballpark, and then, if that meeting runs long and I miss that, like, it's allowed me to pop in more and have more conversations, understand. And I think the last one is just without that pressure, I guess you could say, as a salesperson to like, go hit this number or go get this, it's allowed me to take a step back and just kind of evaluate and ideate and think and look, all right, what new innovative things could we do? Or, we've been doing this just because it's the way it's been done. But like, is that actually the way it is? And just have a conversation with one of the leaders for 30 minutes about, if we could do this different in group sales, or we could do this in our service and retention team, what would that look like? Where I'm in the office, like, all right, we got to go. We can't just sit here and talk. So I think it's allowed us to take a step back and really focus on what's most important, which, I think this is a model that actually could work in sales, which if you had asked me 3 months ago, like, nope, no chance. There's no way ticket sales can work from home. And I think there are some elements that you still need to be in the office and face-to-face. I don't know if it's a permanent thing, but there can be, even just thinking like the hours that we work a game sometimes, and you're back in the office at 8 o'clock the next day, it's like, all right, does it have to be that way anymore? Like, could you work late at night and then finish some work, and come in the afternoon? Like, I'm just throwing stuff out there. Don't necessarily run your boss with that.
I would say check your phone for some more text messages. I don't think they're asking about Navigator anymore.
They're like, cool, he's been letting us work from home. We don't need Navigator. But no, I think it's forced us all to push pause and really reflect. And for me, being focused on the work aspect of it, it's like, it's allowed me to rethink on some things that, maybe weren't as important that we've put a lot of effort into. This could be wasted time.
So we'll finish up. We got one question and then finish with we got, actually, I'm going to jump to this one. We got two more. So this one specifically for Jake. It says, how do you quantify your property is responsible for the ROI when the client has suites and or tickets at multiple properties within your market and is entertaining those same clients? So, you know, let's use the MSG. Know that there's people who own suites there, that own suites at the Giants, own suites at the Devils. You know, how do you quantify the ROI if you're in that situation?
I think, look, that's a really good question. I've got actually kind of two ways to think about this too. It might be scary, but yet also exciting on the second one. So I think, look, the good news is if you start to track this with your client, your peers aren't having this conversation. There's a 94.8% chance, I don't know where that percent came from, but there is a very low likelihood that your counterparts are. So I guarantee if you sit down with your client, your suite client, and you say, or your season ticket, say, all right, good. Look, so for this year we've got, and I think actually, you know what, Demi, maybe I was talking to you guys, maybe I was talking to the folks at MSG about this, and you say, look, okay, so we've got we're going to have 41 games, you know, or we're going to have 8 games or whatever sport you're in. And you say, how are we going to use these? Okay, so new client entertainment, let's try to use about half of those for that. Okay, great. And okay, customer retention, great. Okay, personal, right? And I think just by tracking that and again, it doesn't require a lot of work. It's just that upfront conversation. I think I wouldn't worry about it because I'm just going to trust that I can out execute and I'm going to collect this data. I'm going to say, look, I don't know what your ROI was for those guys and maybe you had some overlap, but I do know your ROI with me was this. So I would say, hey, that's great. And I would just trust that I'm like, again, I'm almost positive that my counterparts aren't doing this. The other pitch, and this is what I've been talking to a lot of sports teams about, depending what your sport, what your team is, like which sport you're in, now is the best time to take from your customers, from your other people in your market. The reason is, guess what? Back in January, they already allocated all their marketing budget. They already said, I'm going to earmark I'm going to this much for client entertainment here, this much here, this much here. And so let's say if they don't have spend, if they have a small spend, there's, you know, you might have an opportunity to capture a little extra budget to then say, hey, you know what, this year, why don't we try this thing? Or in 2021, why don't we try this since you have your leftover budget from this? So I also think if I'm in sports, depending, that narrative is going to change depending what sports I'm in. I think there's a big opportunity to leverage budget that I already know has been allocated to try to see if this year I can get them to do a little bit more or next year to do a little bit more. So I think I wouldn't focus on that other team as much, and I would start to get creative about how I can go find extra budget whenever this season might actually end up happening too. So those are my two kind of quick tips on that.
Cool. Appreciate it. So again, one last question and then move into a piece of advice. So for Andre and Demi, you talked about, Andre, like we need to be really clear on what the metrics are, right? So what is your metric for success? And if you are tomorrow transported back into your inside sales rep or AE days, what is one thing that you're doing right now based on knowing what the metric that matters most? So again, what's the metric that matters most? And if you're an inside sales rep, what are you doing about that if starting tomorrow? So Demi, I'll start with you.
I think, yeah, the metric that matters most is just get face-to-face, whether entering into this whole new era of getting somebody over Zoom and just making them feel more comfortable, that newer form of human interaction, but the fact that they actually can see you face-to-face and feel like they're actually talking to somebody instead of just, you know, on a phone. That to me was always the most important and easiest way to close business and get a gauge for how they're feeling. And then, yeah, if I was hopping back on the phones tomorrow, same thing, trying to understand, you know, where the buyer's at and their mindset, but ultimately having those conversations with the goal of moving the sale forward to get a face-to-face with them to get a decision on the spot.
Andre, how about you? Metric and piece of advice.
Yeah, I'm real big on the face-to-face, which, like we said, may be virtual now. I think there's just so much more you could take away from this. If we had this as a conference call over the phone, like, it'd be a cool conversation, but I could actually see you guys and, you know, read your, you know, facial expressions, everything like that. But, you know, a different answer that if I were to go back as a sales rep, is to focus on as many new people as I could connect with and reach out to. And my advice on that is because a lot of the stress that we have as salespeople, even sales leaders, because our pipeline is actually empty. So you put so much pressure into that one prospect that did say they would set an appointment with you, or that did show and didn't buy, where really, if you go back, you haven't been doing what you need to do for the past 3 months. So whether that person bought or not, you had nothing else on the other side of it. So find a number that makes sense, whether that's working with your analytics team or working with your manager. How many new calls or new connections, or whether that's through LinkedIn or just straight up cold calling and emailing, reaching out to new people every single day. Because to that question that was in the chat that you just answered, Jake, we're just not a fit for everybody. So at the end of the day, we can give the best proposal and the best rebuttal to their objections, and it just may not be a fit, but we got to go find other people. So I felt I did okay at that as a sales rep. Seeing it as a manager and watching, reps struggle and seeing like actually it has nothing to do with what you're saying. It's because you haven't been connecting or reaching out to new people on a regular, consistent basis. I would make that, no matter how tough it is or how frustrating it is, I would just find a way to, power through that, because I know on the other side of that, there's going to be a ton of success that's going to come from it.
So Jake, I'll let you close this out, right? It's opportunities, it's new appointments. What is your one piece of advice for if you're back at the Devil Rays and the hit show?
Man, I've already given my piece of advice, but I will just double down on it. There is never going to be a time where your bosses are like, you know what, we're going to pay you to just connect with people and build your network and have conversations. Like, so again, the other thing I think that might change is like, you're going to be able to do this. And like I said, just imagine, we're talking about these guys are adding thousands of new buyers a month. Like, just imagine whenever it happens, you keep your head down, you keep putting out content, you keep connecting. Your network is going to be so big on the other side of this. Your number of face-to-face meetings, and again, to Andre's point, whenever people feel comfortable, is just going to be through the roof. And it's going to be one of those opportunities. I guarantee there's going to be sellers that do this, and the rest of their peers are going to look at these sellers and be like, oh, look at Jake. He's on LinkedIn. He's posting on LinkedIn. Like, oh, he's fancy, and like, I'm like, let him talk. Cool. And then guess what? In November, when I destroy all of them, they're like, well, it's because he posted on LinkedIn. It's like, yeah, you saw what I was doing and you chose not to do it. So that's my advice. LinkedIn, produce content, connect with people.
I like that, Jake.
Well, Jake, Demi, Andre, thank you guys so much for taking the time. Everyone who joined, we really appreciate it. We will be sending out the recording of this so you can share with your friends if you want to, hold it back because you decided to put the effort in and they didn't. Totally respect that move as well. But thank you guys. Again, we'll be doing these going forward. We are doing one tomorrow with the team from the Nets, talking a little more specifically on the B2B side. So look forward to hopefully seeing some of you guys then. But thanks again, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks guys. Thanks, Ben.